Chapter 21. The Christmas Feast. 25 December 1991. Surprisingly, it had been a quiet 7 weeks since the infamous Gryffindor-Slytherin Quidditch match. Quirrell had made no more murder attempts on Jim or anyone else. The Gryffindors had taken no further action to investigate the third-floor corridor or to protect the Philosopher's Stone from Quirrell. Or from Snape, as the Git and the Weasel were convinced that he was the true villain and it had been Quirrell who saved Jim from falling. Harry chose to let them believe that in the hopes that they'd do something stupid in Snape's class and get enough detentions to keep them out of trouble. Today, on Christmas morning, he thought back over recent events as he got dressed. True to his word, Blaise had joined the study group, and he had been remarkably polite to those of less than immaculate blood purity. More than polite, in fact. He'd been almost flirtatious with all of the female members, including Hermione, a fact which troubled both Harry and Neville for reasons neither of them could articulate. Initially, Blaise had been a bit cagey around Harry after the latter had guessed correctly about his interest in Muggle culture, but soon he made something of a game of letting Harry guess just how integrated into Muggle society he actually was. In addition to casual familiarity with Bill and Ted's excellent adventure, he'd also let slip a few Simpsons references and even looked sadly sympathetic when Hermione bemoaned the cancellation of Doctor Who. They were also both fans of something called Press Gang. Harry himself was vaguely aware of the latter two shows and had actually seen several episodes of The Simpsons on occasions when the Dursleys left him with Mrs. Figg while they were on holiday. Only a few, though, as the older lady preferred American westerns for some odd reason. Ironically, Harry had never actually seen Bill and Ted at all, but he'd heard it a dozen times, as it was one of Dudley's favorite videos, and the television was next to his cupboard. One big hint about Zabini came when Harry learned that the boy would be spending the Christmas holidays at his mother's mansion in Manhattan. A wealthy woman, Madame Zabini, Countess Zabini, to be precise, though Blaise claimed he didn't like to brag, had a dozen homes around the world, but she preferred to celebrate the holidays in New York, due to a fondness for the city's legendary Times Square New Year's festivities. Blaise mentioned that Manhattan did not have a concentrated magical community comparable to Diagon Alley, and so the Wizards of New York took things like subways and cable television for granted. He also joked that he sometimes felt like the wizarding equivalent of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a reference that was completely lost on Harry as it was not the sort of show the Dursleys would ever watch. Theo had also joined the study session. Harry was pleased to see, although he remained shy and quiet. Neville made a point of taking Not under his wing and giving the boy encouragement, especially when Harry wasn't around to do so. As far as Neville was concerned, Theo, by showing him how to unlock his suppressed memories, had helped save Longbottom's life just as much as Harry and Hermione, and he was determined to do what he could to repay the favor. After a few weeks, Theo's class performance had improved noticeably, though he had to put up with snide comments from some of the older purebloods, suggesting that Harry was leading him to consort with undesirables. The first time he successfully performed a transfiguration before Draco Malfoy made it all worthwhile, however. When not preparing for end-of-term exams, Harry had divided his time between his ongoing legal dramas with the Potters and searching the school for any references to the elusive Prince of Slytherin. Both matters seemed to be at an impasse. For the moment, James Potter had no authority to disinherit him, but he would certainly keep looking. Harry, for his part, was looking into backup plans in case his birth father ever succeeded, but according to the law, it would require hiring Gringotts to perform a few blood tests. Since Harry had no intention of sending samples of his blood via owl post, that meant he would have to wait for the summer. Furthermore, and to Harry's consternation, none of the snakes of Hogwarts would answer any questions about the Prince of Slytherin. They all knew exactly what the term meant, but were either unwilling or unable to answer Harry's questions about it. The best he could get was advice to not ask fellow students or any faculty members, as both would be at best a waste of time and at worst a possible invitation to assassination. The bluntness with which some of the snakes talked about the danger inherent in the information was startling. The only practical piece of advice Harry got was from Egbert, who, after days of prodding, finally advised Harry to seek the Sentinel, who could be found past the nests where the lesser powers dwelt, which meant absolutely nothing to Harry. In early December, Snape passed around a sign-up sheet for those who would be staying at Hogwarts over the Christmas holidays. In Slytherin House, that consisted solely of Harry and Theo. Draco made an insulting remark over Harry not having a family that wanted him for Christmas. Harry just smiled and rubbed his fingers as if they were itching to hold a wand, and the boy paled and walked away. For 2 days now, Harry and Theo had the entire Slytherin dorms to themselves, which actually surprised Harry a bit. He'd assumed that more of the Slytherins would seize the opportunity to avoid their families over Christmas break, but apparently most Slytherin households were not as difficult as House Not. Harry, of course, had no desire to return to the Dursleys, but he was somewhat annoyed to learn that Jim and Lily would remain at the castle over the break, and that James would be joining them for the Christmas feast. He wondered if he could get special permission to eat in the kitchens with the house elves. The various Weasleys also stayed over Christmas break. Ronald avoided him like the plague, apparently afraid he would get Slytherin cooties or something, but Harry had several amiable conversations with the twins, as well as a thoroughly enjoyable snowball fight, in which Theo also took part. Unfortunately, it ended prematurely when Quirrell walked by, and the twins tried to knock his turban off his head. Harry made an excuse to break things off in case the two succeeded, and provoked some lethal reprisal. He also had several interesting conversations with Percy Weasley. Well, not interesting as such, several of them were, in fact, excruciatingly dull. The older Weasley was happy to discuss such topics as the system for selecting prefects, what job opportunities there were post-graduation, and after he'd opened up a bit, his opinions on the 6 Slytherin prefects. Harry had also dropped a few hints warning Percy about Ron's association with Jim and about how they'd both displayed far too much interest in the 3rd floor corridor. Harry didn't know if it would help, but it couldn't hurt to have another pair of eyes watching the two. Harry's Christmas morning started off on an upbeat note, as he had received gifts from Neville, Hermione, and several members of the study group. Oh, and a gift-wrapped toilet set from the twins. The most interesting gift, however, was a nicely wrapped box with no card containing a VHS copy of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Inside, however, was a blank tape. Harry wondered for a bit where he could possibly play it at Hogwarts. Then, on impulse, he cast a finite incantatum on the tape, and it transfigured itself into the form of a small book bearing the title Pathways of the Mind. Inside was a handwritten note that simply read, "You may find these exercises more helpful than those in your regular occlumency reading. Also, Mom wants to meet you sometime." It was, of course, unsigned. Laughing at how easily Blaise simultaneously combined obfuscation with theatricality, Harry transfigured the book back into a VHS tape and put it away.